The final question was on
tangible
what do we do
description
now?
of immediate next steps.
What next?
Oh, next steps. Right.
City of Athens.
The first step to take is a resolution. The great thing about resolutions is they're non-binding, so they're relatively easy to adopt.
We've noticed.
In community choice, the basic idea is that you proceed from the informal to the formal. You do nothing that exposes your jurisdiction to any risk or commitment until the very end of the process. So you start out very informally talking about what you resolve to do. And so the first thing to resolve about is that you want to pursue it. So a resolution saying that you want to pursue community choice aggregation and that what your criteria are, that your interest is, what I would encourage you to do is that your interest is not in obtaining a discount in your energy costs, but in stabilizing your energy costs. The principle of meter beat I think is very useful. You basically frame the policy for the public. So you give them something to understand about what you're up to. And the basic contours of a program generally are how green do you want to be, how much risk do you want to take, and what do you want to do with rates. And so our view is the best answer to those questions are rates stay the same or are better, but they can be the same. That you want to go set some impressive standard of greenness over a 10%, over a 10-year time frame. I think 10 years is meaningful. If you go to 20 years, you're getting the la-la land, and it's politically responsible because most elected officials will not be here in 20 years, and versus 10 years, some of you might be, and so it's more meaningful, and those who lead will have a chance to carry the ball all the way to the end, which usually is essential to making the policy successful. And then on risk, to clarify the role of the city. The first issue is what kind of municipal financing you want to employ. Revenue bonds, which are minimum risk to the general fund. They don't expose the general fund. They don't expose taxpayers. They limit you to a 20-year horizon, and they limit how green you can go. Capital bonds are the next level of risk. They involve some general fund exposure, but they enable you to go to a 30-year time frame, and they allow you to go into this sort of 66% land. Because you're financing that far forward, you're capturing that much revenue, you can finance that much more infrastructure within a single contract. And the whole issue is, what can you do in one agreement? Because what you really do today will be in that one agreement. Everything else will be a goal that the next city council may or may not implement. And so the question is, how far do you want to go within one agreement? You frame it that way. And so the resolution is non-binding, but it clarifies the discussion going forward. It allows you, the leaders, to take leadership rather than waiting for consensus. You put it on the table, you define it, let people come and comment on it. And then the risk profile also relates to performance risk, and there's some details to clarify about questions like what happens if the supplier goes bankrupt, or what happens if the supplier doesn't roll out renewables like they're supposed to. There's certain little bonding requirements that if you clarify early on, then the utility can't come in and say, hey, you're going to bankrupt your town, because you've already covered that base. What happens in a worst case scenario. So those sort of giving contour to the program in a resolution form allows you then to define the thing and go forward and become more formal. You also, in the resolution, can start the process of inviting neighboring jurisdictions to join you, which is a very important thing. Not to wait for them to join you, go ahead. It's very important to just go ahead unilaterally, but to invite other jurisdictions to join. The Cape Light Compact was started by one town, and it took them a long time to get it passed, but once they passed, it was a couple of months before 6 other towns had joined them. Being the leader helps enormously. Gives people the opportunity to themselves choose what you're standing for or not. And I've been shocked by how responsive towns are. After being hesitant to do anything, how eagerly they jump on someone else, on the piggyback on someone else's leadership. I think it's a great way to start things. And certainly working with the Cape Light Compact. NOPEC was amazing because it was incredible. Hundreds of these referenda to form CCAs. Now, in their case, they were just going for a discount, so it wasn't terribly inspiring, but you can put it forward. Then you want to place, ultimately, want to place a resolution on the ballot for the voters, because you must, under state law, to approve the program. And so in that process, you begin to negotiate with suppliers, and ultimately you will adopt an ordinance to implement the program, and you will probably, I have to study the local laws here, but you probably will adopt an ordinance to issue bonds, I would guess. So you basically go from resolution to referendum to ordinance to procurement ordinance to bond ordinance. And then at that point, you're actually locked in. There is a degree of accountability, but you wait until you've gotten public support to go to market, and you negotiate with suppliers to see who's willing to do what for you. And once the agreements are submitted, then you have your real political decision: are we going to do this or not? Are we going to approve this contract or not? And